Hello and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we'll talk about controller plugins in Zend Framework 2. Controller plugins are basically the same as view helpers, except they are used within controllers. As with view helpers, they are particularly useful for operations that need to be performed repeatedly. This could be redirecting a request, accessing a logged-in user's information, and so on. Zend Framework 2 ships with several useful controller plugins that are sufficient for most people. Within a controller plugin is accessed in the same way that a view helper is accessed within a view script. It is possible to extend Zend Framework 2 with one's own controller plugins. Now we will talk about the various controller plugins and how to use them. The first one is the identity plugin. What this does is that it allows you to access the identity of the currently logged in user. If the current user is not logged in, the plugin returns null. Typically, a user's object will be stored within the identity, and thus we could access the user's name, for example. The layout plugin enables one to change to a given layout template from within controller actions. In this example, we change to a layout with the name of layout/admin. This can be useful for switching between layouts depending on certain conditions, such as being logged in or not being logged in. Like with the URL view helper, the URL controller plugin generates URLs for configured routes. By passing in the name of a route along with any parameters, a string with the generated URL is returned. The redirect plugin redirects the user to a given destination. This can either be a route, a URL, or to self by performing a refresh. This automatically modifies the HTTP response by setting the appropriate status code along with the location header. So this saves us quite a bit of work and is very convenient to do this. And it's something you might need quite often. The forward plugin dispatches a request to a controller action and returns the contents of the response. In this example, we dispatch a request to the specified controller, which is the first parameter, using the options passed as the second parameter. Here, one can pass data that is used within the action, such as route segments. In the example, we fetch the JSON for an article from a control action and send the decoded JSON to a view script. This plugin allows for a great deal of flexibility, and this is just an example of how it can be used. The parents plugin allows one to access parameters in actions from different sources. In the example, we fetch an article's ID from the root, which is a segment root. We also fetch a source parameter from the URL's query string, and we fetch data from the post data and from the HTTP header. If we don't mind where the data is retrieved from, we can simply invoke the controller plugin directly by passing a parameter to it. In this case, a value is returned if any source contains a value for the given key. With the Flash Messenger plugin, you can set a flash message, which is stored in the session. This flash message can be output by the Flash Messenger view helper that we discussed in the previous lecture. It's possible to add messages to a namespace of your choice, but the simplest use case is to simply add a message by passing a single string to the addMessage method. In this example, we set a flash message and we redirect the user to a success page. Here we check whether or not any messages are available in the session, and if so, we send these to the view script for output. Usually, these messages will be accessed directly within view scripts by using the view helper, but I'm just accessing the messages here to show you how this is done within controller actions. Two more controller plugins are shipped with Zend Framework 2, the acceptable view model selector and the post redirect get plugins. The acceptable view model selector plugin can be used to select an appropriate view model based on user-defined criteria, which is tested against the accept header of the request. This is, for example, useful if you're developing an API where the user can decide if JSON or XML should be returned by setting the accept header to either application/JSON or application/XML. To understand what the post redirect get plugin does, let me first tell you the problem that it solves. Normally, when a user submits a form with the post method and navigates back in the browser will warn the user about resubmitting the form. But by storing the form data in the session and redirecting the user to perform a GET request, this problem is solved with the post redirect get controller plugin. The form data is then retrieved from the session and the processing can be done as if it were accessed from the post request. Just like with view helpers, you can create your own controller plugins. And it's actually very easy to do so, but it's outside the scope of this presentation. And it's something that's not really needed very often. But if you're curious to learn more, then you can go ahead and read my blog post on this subject. So that's all for this lecture. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next lecture.